video will discuss the novel A Head Full of Ghosts based on its popular elements. Paul J. Tremblay, born June 13, 1971, is an American author and editor of contemporary horror, dark fantasy, and science fiction. He is also a juror for the Shirley Jackson Award. Well, A Head Full of Ghosts is a horror novel by Paul Tremblay. The novel was published on June 2015 by William Morrow and set in Beverly, Massachusetts. By the way, this novel consists of three parts. Part 1, Rachel started an interview with Mary in the prison. Then Mary's story takes us back in time when she was 8 years old and her sister Marjorie 14 years old. Part 2, Mary tells the process of filming the possession to the exorcism process by Father Wonderly. Father Wonderly is assisted by Father Gavin against Marjorie. He is a pastor. Part 3, Mary tells what happened between the last episode of the possession. Marjorie jumps from the balcony. Until then, Marjorie's father and mother dies in their home. The show only managed to tear the family further apart, and during this time, Marjorie tells Mary that she has been faking her sign of demonic possession. She chose to do this because the family was in danger of losing their home, and the show's producers were paying their family a large enough amount of money from them to survive. It's hard to tell whether or not Marjorie is telling the truth, and this is left to interpretation by the end of the novel. The tension gets increasingly higher, leading up to the climactic exorcism of Marjorie Barrett, as Mary tells her story to Rachel. Even more secrets are revealed, and the lines between fiction or non-fiction, reality and fantasy begin to blur even further. To make it clear, this novel is told from the perspective of Meredith as Mary Barrett, a 23 years old, who is finally ready to share details of the horrific incident that occurred when she was 8 years old. Yeah, as we know, 15 years ago, Mary is 8, Marjorie is 14. Mary did not understand when their mother said that Marjorie has mental disorder, and took her periodically to a psychiatrist. Meanwhile, their father had just been laid off, and since then it was easy to change his mood. The father then joined a cult and established closeness with Father Wonderly. In his father's belief, Marjorie was possessed by an evil spirit. Therefore, he insisted on meeting her with Father Wonderly instead of sending her a consultation to a psychiatrist on his behalf. Therefore, there arose a dispute between the mother and the father. Mary often found Marjorie doing strange things, starting from telling horror stories about molasses and growing things, sneaking into Mary's rooms at night, breaking the walls of her room, making scars on her body, until adults are convinced that she is possessed and in the end agreed to exorcism. By the way, like the creeping fins in Marjorie growing things story, actually John chokes the life out of every person in the house. He becomes possessed with such religious fervor that he exploits his daughter's illness and tears the family apart. While Father Wonderly introduced Marjorie's possession to the documentary crew, who then made the family a reality show called The Possession. The mother initially disapproved of the exorcism and filming of the film, but finally agreed, because only then was the bankrupt family able to get a lot of money in a short amount of time.
Oh, come on!
This novel won the Horror Writers Association Bram Stoker Award for Novel in 2015. Focus Features has acquired the right to develop a movie adaptation. STS Film will produce the A Head Full of Ghosts project. On the Goodreads, A Head Full of Ghosts get 30.80 stars, 40,380 ratings, and 5,855 reviews. A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay got a review from Stephen King. He said that A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay scared the living hell out of me, and I'm pretty hard to scare. First is John becomes very oriented. He gave pep talks about how his family will overcome. John became deranged and was living somewhere between fiction and reality. There is no real explanation for Marjorie's illness, but John is convinced that he can save her. His yell fills him with energy and power, often erupting into violent outbursts. On the other hand, the mother, Sarah, collapses into a heap of guilt and becomes less emotionally stable because she did not stand her ground against her husband's wish of performing an exorcism and broadcasting it. Sarah slowly deteriorates. She looked Marjorie with her puffy, bloated eyes, and she was smoking way too much. Well, Marjorie likes to make fantasy as a form of activity that involves the imagination to keep herself busy from feeling of sadness. Until Marjorie is disappearing altogether in several parts as a way to escape. Marjorie appeared as a heroine who had tragic fate. Marjorie is described as a creature that traces the world. The protagonist must face an evil father into something common in Gothic literature. The familiar plot is that John is both father and a family villain. John's character reflects the symbol of the erosion of a patriarchal society. He was presented as a hero and father who failed. The unexpected plot that was present in the last session was that Marjorie pretended in shooting film The Possession. She exaggerates, and that the mother also pretends. They planned the scenario without Mary's knowledge. The gloomy contraction of a house with a dark atmosphere is a setting that is presented in the novel A Head Full of Ghosts. Its very description reflects the menace the house contains, while the setting of time in this novel mostly present at night, to make the tension or things evoking fright of the readers, because as we know that night can be very tense and scary. That is the power of the subgenre of horror. Because the setting and atmosphere are so important, they are often described very detailed. Certainly, profanity and excesses typify the language of horror novel. It's same with A Head Full of Ghosts novel. The language is rich in adjective and description, generally of the evil that threatens. Marjorie, as human as well as demons, it establishes a unique character, forbidden and taboo knowledge that somehow she managed to obtain. While the character of father here are also described very unique. Sometimes the father is described as a symbol of a superhero who can save the family from a threat, but it turns out different from the character John in this novel. He is a symbol of the failure of father in this modern era. John is described as an antagonist character, as well as a real monster. No, I know the truth that in horror novel often protagonists are haunted, shattered individuals, while antagonists are always sinister and often monster in some form, whether real or imaginary. While the mother figure is described as a common character, Sarah is described as a caring mother, but has no control or is not authoritarian. Mary here is also described as a common character. Just like Mary, it is commonplace that younger sister always follows the direction of her sister. She is an innocent child who is also confused about reality. Have you ever imagined why horror literature is synonymous with women depicted as demons or who create sinister terror? Marjorie is portrayed as a female character who can create sinister terror. Yes, this is a cultural order that has taken root in society. Women are considered capable of describing demons' character better than men. Because most horror tells stories about vengeful spirits. Women characters who are considered capable of representing vengeance are better chosen. And also, this is a moral message that women are often the object of male violence. Similar to the novel A Head Full of Ghosts, here Marjorie is portrayed as a female character who is oppressed and physically and mentally persecuted to the point of death. Also, the voice of women who become demons sounds more terrible than the voice of men who tend to be masculine. Like Marjorie, she is depicted in a plot that can produce scary and changeable sounds. In conclusion, the life of Barrett, a normal New England suburban family, fell apart when 14 years old, Marjorie began to behave strangely. Now we know that the characteristic of horror, the reader is left free to interpret what happened. Is Marjorie true as a teenager who has schizophrenia? Or is she possessed? We know that horror always presents an emotional shock with an unresolved ending. In horror, all elements, storyline, characterization, pacing, help create this sense of menace and contribute to this emotional impact. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.